Legalizing drugs is not a solution for fixing America's drug problem. Today, this argument is being discussed more than ever because of our increasing drug problem. And the scary part is that people actually believe legalizing drugs will fix that problem, when in fact it will do the opposite and more. Growing up in Cleveland and being surrounded by inner city culture, I have witnessed the effects of drug use firsthand, and the negative effects it has on all aspects of life. Today, I wish to influence and educate you on the danger of drugs and their vicious effects on everyone. Drug, Drugs, unless used for obvious medical reasons, should not be legalized for the general public. They destroy the user's brain and body, their relationships, and society. Legalizing them will leave us with more problems than solutions. We have all been told numerous times about the effects of drug use on our bodies and minds. So why do people still use them? Because they are exactly what doctors and researchers say they are, extremely addictive. And feeding that addiction presents dangers for those who already have that craving and for those who are curious. We are some of the most complex organisms in the world. Watching what we put into our bodies is very important, not only for our physical needs, but our mental needs as well. A body who uses drugs is very different from one that doesn't. A drug user puts every system of their bodies at risk. Approximately 27 million Americans, or 10.2% of the American population over the age of 12, reported using illicit drugs in 2014, according to the National Survey on Drug Use and Health. Our bodies take about 25 years to develop fully. Taking drugs at all, and especially at a young age, can drastically change how our body develops and greatly heighten the risk involved. So those who use drugs are more likely to increase risk of lung and heart disease, premature aging of the skin, cause blackouts, hearing loss, cause liver, kidney, and bone marrow damage, as well as cardiac damage, convulsions, strokes and heart attacks, heart disease, cancer, HIV, AIDS, mental illness, etc. There's a never-ending list of dangers. Nearly 1/3 of reported AIDS causes have been linked to injection drug use, heroin, cocaine, or any drug that abusers inject, as reported by Scholastic. Because these diseases are spread through sharing needles, legalizing these actions has the potential of spreading diseases like AIDS exponentially. If the physical consequences don't scare you enough, there is just as many mental consequences as well. Our brains are the most complex organ in our bodies. You need it to do absolutely everything, from learning, driving, making art, to talking, walking, feeling emotions, and responding to experiences. All parts of the brain work together to make us who we are, but with drugs, that makeup is changed. The brain adjusts to excessive amounts of dopamine by reducing the number of receptors that can receive signals. Because of how the brain works, drug users' reward circuit of the brain becomes abnormally low, and any ability to experience any pleasure is reduced. Drug users eventually begin to feel depressed and lifeless. Now the addiction comes into play. Trying to reach that high again ultimately makes matters worse, becoming a vicious cycle. Drug abuse can turn into a form of self-medication, worsen underlying mental illness, or start causing those symptoms. Unfortunately, those who are abusing drugs are 6 times more likely to commit suicide than those who don't. Legalizing harmful drugs would put many people in serious danger. Giving them a way to immediately tap into their temptation will greatly increase all of these risks. One thing we overlook as a society when talking about drug abuse is the effect it has on relationships. Once someone is addicted, the only thing that will satisfy their needs is the drug. Anything else that matters to them suddenly doesn't begin to matter as much. As a result, the relationship becomes dysfunctional. Family members and loved ones take on a heavy burden once they are aware of this person's drug problem. They might start to become depressed because of the guilt they take on by blaming themselves and wondering what they could have done differently to prevent this when it was never their fault. Unfortunately, most people addicted to drugs don't realize how their actions are affecting their own body and mind, let alone the people they love. This creates many problems for any relationship, and oftentimes the loss of a relationship altogether. As a drug abuser begins to lose interest in the things that used to make them happy, they will eventually start to lose interest or a sense of happiness from their friends, husband or wife, and even children. And the things they used to do together that brought them happiness won't matter as much anymore. This often leads to broken homes, abuse, and divorce. Those who abuse drugs are prone to abuse other things in their lives as well. A study done by American Society of Addiction Medicine showed the following. Research that finds 40 to 60% of instances of intimate partner violence occur in conjunction with substance abuse. They also report that on the days where substance abuse was most excessive, the rate of physical violence was 11 times greater with intimate partner violence batterers. Perhaps an even more frightening thought is the abuse of children that come from drug addiction. Studies show that children who are abused by someone with a drug problem almost always develop that same addiction and continue the cruel cycle. Even without abuse, children still learn by example and are greatly affected by those they live with and look up to. Children in that environment may come to believe that these substances or behavior are acceptable and develop them without knowing any better. Any relationship a drug abuser has is affected regardless of the severity. If we legalize drugs, we are asking for broken friendships and families. With families being the foundation of society, you can see how bringing drugs into the picture is problematic for the community as a whole. A report done in 2016 by U.S. Surgeon General states, the yearly annual economic impact for the misuse of prescription drugs, illicit drugs, or alcohol is $442 billion. Not only does drug addiction create financial stress for families, but all of America as well. Along with that comes increased rates of child abuse, increased domestic disputes, increased homelessness and poverty, increased crime and violence, increased stress on co-workers, increased loss of jobs and businesses. The list goes on and on. We must protect our country from an addiction problem that is already bad enough. Legalizing drugs would be 10 steps back, not one step forward. The scale between positive and negative is almost incomparable. The negative effects greatly outweigh the positive. Feeding this epidemic would only make matters worse for everyone, not just the drug users. Their families, friends, and anyone who pays taxes is affected. A problem cannot be fixed by creating more problems.